Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 5. Time is certainly flying here. Sorry I didn't get a posting last week. We have 22 graduating librarians in this spring, and we have had a lot of paperwork and things to get done to try to help them get that goal accomplished. So when you get there, I will hopefully know more about the process, because right now it's the first time as coordinator I've kind of had to go through this whole thing a year ago. It wasn't my responsibility to kind of see how all this got done, or that it did get done. So it's certainly, as you know, with a new job, it's certainly been an interesting learning process with a fairly steep curve from time to time. So last week was about planning your facility. That is probably, in my opinion, probably one of the fun things as a school library media administrator that we get to do. If you're lucky, you will get a brand new library, or you will get to renovate your library. Those are both a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. If you go through that process, either one of those, a lot of times you'll have architects or interior designers involved, but you still need to kind of have a vision or an idea in your head. And that's kind of what this week was about, or sorry, last week was about. So to kind of plant those seeds and just kind of have you start thinking about things from a different perspective. Certainly those are resources there that you could use later if you've downloaded them onto your computer, or a lot of times they're just seeds that are planted, and if somebody comes in and starts talking to you about it, you kind of have, at least an idea how to, either where to go look, or suggestions about things that you would like. Okay, so that was last week. So this week we're talking about you being an instructor. So often people forget that we're teachers. We're actually a hybrid. You are considered a professional within, obviously, the teaching world because you got your teaching certificate, and once you have your master's, you'll be considered a professional within the library media world. So, but somehow people tend to forget that we are teachers, that is one of our jobs. It's certainly not the only job. Being a school library administrator, by the end of this class, you will understand the depth and the breadth of what it takes to be a school library administrator. Teaching is probably the funnest part, in my opinion, is the funnest part of our job. But it's sometimes can be one of those things that maybe we don't get to do because as often as we would like to, because of the administrative side of our job. Purchasing books and doing all those things takes time. That is all part of being an administrator in your library. So this week, though, we're going to talk about the teaching side. Because so often, like I said, people forget that we are teachers. So this is gonna be one of those, what I call elevator speeches, that you're gonna create. By the time you graduate, you will have a toolkit full of elevator speeches. So when people ask you questions, you don't hesitate, you have an answer right off the tip of your tongue, and you're ready to go. So basically this week there are 3 parts to the discussion. The first part asks basically how, if your principal were to come to you and say, how would you describe your role as an instructor, like collaborator or facilitator? How would you describe that? Kind of helps you get through that part of the elevator speech. Once you do it a couple times, you'll kind of know how to answer that question, because you will get asked that question a lot by fellow teachers, by people outside in your community, by people that you don't even know, but they'll find out you're a teacher and ask what grade do you teach, and then you say you're a school librarian, and then it goes on from there, and that becomes a very long conversation a lot of times with people, because they don't know what we do and that we are more than just books. I mean, books are probably a lot of the reason why we got into this, but there's so much more to our job than just checking books in and out. So, okay, so you're going to tell your principal about being an instructor, what that involves. There are some graphic organizers on there. If you have one a graphic organizer that you like and that you already use and feel comfortable with, go ahead and use that one. I gave you lots of options in case you just were looking for something new and want to try something new. All I ask is that when you're answering that part of the question, the graphic organizer question, that you think about it from a library perspective. Don't think about it from a classroom teacher perspective. Think about it as you're a school librarian when you answer that question. But you're going to say, but I'm a teacher is a teacher. Well, that is true to a certain degree. But in this case, I want you to think about the fact that when you collaborate with a teacher, more often than not, you're going to be the one that's teaching the what I call research tools, the nonfiction books, the databases, the websites that you've chosen to use. All of those tools that we use, so often that will fall to you because the teachers are going to want you to explain that part. So you need to think about how would you use a graphic organizer to kind of explain those kinds of things. It's just to kind of help you get used to that side of the role. So when you move into that part of the job, you're comfortable with it. And it's one of those things that you, like I said, in your toolkit, once again, you'll just kind of take it out, use it, and move on from there. It's a little cumbersome the first couple times you do it, so it's kind of why I want you to do it while you're in class instead of trying to do it once you're out in the school library. Okay, so let's see. The third part of the question is, why should we use primary resources? That's actually covered in the state standards right now. It's also included in various, when you look at not just our state standards, but depending on what group, like ISTE or AASL, it's also, things like that are also included in those standards. So you're going to have a reason why, when you, especially if you're sitting down and going through a full lesson plan, a full collaborative lesson plan with a teacher, they're going to ask you, well, why do you keep pushing these primary resources? Why are these so important? And you know your students are going to ask you. So you need to come up with an elevator speech for that. And there's some helpful tips in the lesson this week. So I suggest you kind of read over those, kind of pick the ones that you're the most comfortable with, and go from there. Okay, so I think that's all for this week. Don't forget, your long range plan is due February 12th, 10 p.m. So if you're one of those who has procrastinated, as you now know, it is February 3rd. So the due date is coming up on us quickly. So if you haven't started, start, please. Thank you. Okay, I hope everybody has a great week. And if you have any questions, email me.